I'm more than a rare exception, you can't compare him. I'm fly as Tuskegee Airman. My patience is as thin as her pens. You find a sucker cat that's...
Welcome to 3 Count Commentaries. So today we're going to talk about Kenny Omega's Twitter meltdown. I'm going to be honest, have a little bit of backstory before I get to it. To be honest, I was at work when all this happened. I was not really sure what was going on. And when I was sat down to go through Twitter or whatever, a lot of it was, everybody putting their own little spin on it. There was people saying that Kenny Omega was acting out inappropriately on Twitter. That much is true. He was saying some stuff that he shouldn't have said. There was people saying that Kenny Omega was being inundated with troll attacks. People calling him names. Somebody called him a groomer, a pedo, and all that kind of stuff. I did able to see some of that. But the thing that really bothered me was the Kenny Omega saying that people would not fight him. And I was like, what on earth is going on in AEW where these people are saying this kind of stuff on Twitter? And that's really what made me sit down and watch and do this video. Now, I'm not going to do a read of the tweets. At this point, some of the stuff has been deleted. Whole accounts have been deleted. So it's impossible to know what the guy is even responding to at this point sometimes. But some of the juicier pieces are still up. And if I can find screenshots of them, I will put them on the screen. So as far as I know, it began with Kenny Omega trying to sell the Battle of the Belts match between Riho and Britt Baker, which the match was trash. Somebody mentioned Riho, and Kenny Omega said that Riho could beat him up in real life or something like that. Now, it kind of spiraled out of control from there, because now he was called a groomer for having matches with Riho when she was 9 years old and helping with her training and that kind of stuff. So let's discuss that first. Now, Kenny Omega, as the EVP of a company, is his responsibility to make sure that his talent is over. And yes, he was trying to just talk about a match that he is fond of, which is Britt Baker versus Riho. And he is a fan of both of them. We know this. The issue we got here is that Kenny Omega, as the EVP of the company, is and supposedly the guy behind the curtain when it comes to the women's division. It is up to him to sell this match. And he thought he was doing his job. The issue is Riho is not over with the masses. They don't really appreciate Riho. They don't see the purpose of Riho. Yes, some people are calling her a Japanese schoolgirl because that's what Jim Cornette calls her. And a lot of people are, that takes us back to Japan, which we'll get into in a minute or so. But Kenny Omega failed Riho because, yes, everybody knows Riho wrestled at 9 years old. And that now, I don't even know if she's 30. I don't know how old she is now. But what Riho's story, as far as wrestling at 9, is it's not unusual. Let's put it like that. When Vice did this documentary on the wrestlers, and they went over to Japan to talk about Wonder Ring Stardom, the female wrestling promotion. There was a girl there that was about 16 at the time, and Vice was talking about how, inappropriate it was that, these Stardom women are selling pictures of themselves, and the male fans get really clingy towards the female wrestlers. And they made the male fans of Stardom feel so desperate and pathetic and sad and creepy. And so that kind of became what people think when they think of these young women in wrestling. Of course, it's very weird that Japan kidnaps these 9-year-old girls and throws them in military camps that are called, boot camps that are called wrestling schools. And then they're burned out by 24. That's why so many of them come over here so fresh-faced, and you're like, she's been in the business 10 years already. It's like she's 21. Like, how could it possibly be she was in the business for 10 years already? But it's pretty normal. It's up to Kenny Omega to tell that story. It's up to Kenny Omega to make it, and not to normalize it, but just to say this is her story. She started wrestling very young. She was a prodigy, yada, yada, yada. Kayfabe it if you have to. What adversity did she face being a young girl in wrestling, or a young woman in Japan or whatever that was in the business, in order to get her over with people? But what we ended up doing is we ended up just starting to saying anytime Riho comes in, she automatically gets back in the top spot. She was either the champion or she's a challenger. Pretty much every time she comes back from, I don't know, Japan, I'm guessing is where she goes. And people have noticed that favoritism. And people have started to mention it because, hey, you have a bunch of other women's wrestlers. So what is it about Riho that makes her so special? And then you say, well, she's a good wrestler. It's like, well, isn't everybody you signed a good wrestler? And then there's this, of course, the meme that so many of these women are big draws because they, like somebody like the Bunny or somebody like that, or Ty Conti or Anna Jay, like they're so good and they're so, like they don't get shot. They almost never get shots. They may wrestle Britt Baker once and then lose and then move on. They don't get extended amounts of time with Britt or feuds with Britt like Riho does. And so people started asking the question, why is it that Riho gets an opportunity and nobody else really does? And he got defensive about that. And it's because nobody can really, he didn't do a good job of really selling Riho on anybody. So now that only leaves the accusations. Well, she can't cut promos because she doesn't speak English. She doesn't have a really over the top, in your face character or personality. And she isn't a physical marvel or anything like that. If you want to ask people, wrestling is a visual medium. I say this all the time. When you ask people, why in the hell is Jade Cargill getting pushed? I say, look at her abdomen. Look at her legs. Look at her arms. She's built like a pro wrestler should have muscles. All right. It's an athletic pursuit. It's a competition. MMA fighters have muscles. Boxers have muscles. Wrestlers should have muscles. I'm sorry. There's just no, football players have muscles. Even the ones who are fat, they still have muscles. Britt Baker doesn't look like she could chop onions, let alone win a fight. So we have to ask questions when it comes to, and so does Riho. I mean, come on. I think Riho needs help opening a bottle of ketchup. We need to ask questions about this kind of stuff. And of course, everybody knows wrestling. It's not real. It's not real. It's like, yeah, but it's supposed to pretend that it's real. For Christ's sake, when somebody asks you why is Jade Cargill getting pushed, even though she's the shits, you say, look at her. She looks like a pro wrestler. She looks like a person who was good at fighting. When you ask about Riho, who is small, kind of demure, doesn't have a big personality, how is it if she keeps getting opportunities? Then you ask the question, how could that be? And then you say, well, she was best friends with the guy. Let's just be nice and say they're best friends with the guy who books the division. Okay, that's nepotism. So now people are going to jump to the conclusion, and that's just being nice that you were a groomer. And yes, I think it's inappropriate to call Kenny Omega a groomer. It's not. The thing is, it's inappropriate to say that somebody is doing something that's highly illegal without any sort of evidence. No, I don't. I will disagree with anybody who will say Kenny Omega is grooming Riho. I'm like, look, it's inappropriate. I even say that a lot of the stuff that Kenny Omega has done in terms of wrestling 9-year-old girls and then bringing that same 9-year-old girl to the United States and pushing her as a top female actor in the company is nepotism. But as Kevin Nash says, that's your friend. And if you ain't pushing your friends, then what the fuck are you doing? If you're at the top and you can't push your friends, you can't get your friend a job, what are you doing? Nepotism is a part of the business, and I think sometimes wrestling fans forget that, but it is. Almost everybody who's been somebody has been the friend, cousin, relative, son, uncle, or somebody else important, and the best friend, the drinking buddy, or something. That's just kind of how pro wrestling is. Riho and Kenny Omega's situation is not that different. But Omega got really upset about all of this stuff. And then he started attacking the people who he claims were attacking him. And then we ended up getting to the point where he called a fan a pedo and said that the fan maybe abducted the baby he was holding in a picture, which is a very, very, very bizarre thing. And it was pretty much the only thing I saw for like 2 hours. It's just Kenny Omega tweeted out something to the effect of, your profile picture boasts inappropriate touching of a child you may or may not have abducted. And I was like, what in the earth is he talking about? For starters, it's a baby. Second, the natural jump would be that it's his baby that he's holding in this picture. And of course it was. The guy said it was my daughter. And I'm thinking, what is wrong with Kenny Omega? Why is he tweeting this shit? You know, why is he going after all of these people like this? And then once he did that, the door was wide open. Now people are talking about Chase and Rants. Now people are talking about Marty Skrull. Now people are talking about him hanging out with Don Callis, all of whom are suspected sexual predators. Kenny Omega did not respond to the Marty Skrull thing. He kind of diverted attention from that. But he also didn't respond to the Don Callis thing. Now, Don Callis was accused of being the reason Scarlett is not with Impact anymore. That he and Scarlett may have done something inappropriate with Scarlett or said something inappropriate to Scarlett, and that's why she doesn't want to go back to Impact anymore. And that's why she wanted to leave when she was there in the first place. That's just an accusation. We don't know. Chase and Rance is a proven pedophile. He has a record. Marty Skrull is a proven pedophile. He admitted it himself. Now, the Marty Skrull situation, if you're in England and you may say, oh, well, she was 16, it's legal here. Sure. But I think she was also drunk, and I think she also was one of his students. And in any event, it's still highly inappropriate. And he's a scumbag. So whether you throw him in prison or not is one way, or is a different thing. But him having sex with underage girls is highly inappropriate. And there's just no coming back from that. Now, Kenny Omega, to his credit, says, I only took a picture with Chase and Rance. He's not my friend. We don't talk, yada, yada, yada. He was at the same event, and we took a picture. That was it. That's the only evidence that I even know this guy. In terms of Marty Skrull, he didn't really answer. This led to a lot of the Kenny Omega supporters saying that and they just said WWE fans. It's not really just WWE fans. There's people who don't watch WWE who don't like Kenny Omega. And there's a lot of reasons why. We'll get into that in a moment. And he says, they say that we have to provide evidence that they're still friends. I'm like, I don't have to provide evidence that Marty Skrull and Kenny Omega are still friends. It's up to Kenny Omega to say that, no, we're not friends. Because we don't know the nature of their relationship. We only know that they were friends and that they were hanging out together. And just like Joey Ryan, was another one that they used to hang out with who ended up being a sexual deviant, let's put it like that. And we know that too. We know that to be true. That was the Southern California gang. He was friends with the Young Bucks and all those guys. So they're just lumping Kenny Omega in with them. And yes, that's wrong to do. There was a guy, and I saw this and I couldn't believe it when I saw it. Some guy who says that Kenny Omega is under investigation in Japan for inappropriately dealing with minors or something like that. I'm like, that is ridiculous. Like, what makes people tweet this shit out? But at the same time, Kenny Omega was just going on and on and on. And I'm like, things are just going to get more and more ridiculous. It's just going to get more and more ridiculous. Until we finally got to the, he ended up mentioning Jim Cornette when Marty Skrull came up. That, a lot of this stuff is coming from Jim Cornette. Now, that is true. Jim Cornette is the one. He has history with Kenny Omega. We know this. That they started working together, and they worked together in Ring of Honor, and there's a lot of personal beef between the two of them. And it was Jim Cornette that made it public that Kenny Omega wrestled a 9-year-old girl, that Kenny Omega had done the sissy slap fight scene, that he had dressed up like Princess Jasmine from Aladdin, that he was kissing Kota Ibushi in the mouth. A lot of his fans are proud of a lot of this stuff, by the way. That he was dressing up as Princess Jasmine, that he was kissing Kota Ibushi in the mouth, and they was doing a gay storyline, the Golden Lovers. They talk a lot about that kind of stuff. There's videos of 50,000 views talking about how much they loved that angle and yada, yada, yada. There was obviously him dancing in the ring, him wrestling 9-year-old girls, him poking people in the butt with his fingers, all that kind of stuff. And all that shit started to come out because people don't like that stuff. People don't like weirdo behavior, and that stuff is to their view of the world, weirdo behavior. And somebody even said that to Kenny Omega, like, look, people think that you're a pedo because they think you're gay, because look at all this stuff that you've done, and you're a 40-year-old man. I want to get the exact wording on this because I think this one is kind of important. Somebody says, hate to break it to you, Kenny, but you got all the signs of a pedo. You're in your late 30s with no wife, no girlfriend, no kids. You act out homosexual behavior in the ring, especially in Japan. You dress in drag. You are awkward as fuck. You groom, mentor Riho at the age of 9. That's all. That's just people bringing things together that are factual information. Do I agree with his conclusion that Kenny Omega is, one, a homosexual, two, a groomer? No. But when you look at all of those things together, you know that there is something weird about this guy. So it's not completely out of the ordinary that you would think that he would probably be doing something. And then look at his friends. So that's all people are doing, is looking at, okay, you're friends with Joey Ryan. We know that Joey Ryan has problems with women and girls and all that kind of stuff. You're friends with Marty Scurll. We know that you have, he has problems with young women and, having sex with them and stuff like that. You are connected with Don Callis, who has these accusations of, again, young women and all this kind of stuff around him. Then you spend Michael Nakazawa in the same match that he was wrestling Riho. If I believe it was a tag team match, Michael Nakazawa pulled the young boy's tights over his head and was bumping the boy with his pelvis like he was humping him. Absolutely inappropriate behavior, greatly disturbing behavior. That was in a match that was filmed and recorded in front of people. When you have all of this stuff going around, and you're doing gay angles, and you're poking people in the butt with your fingers, and you're cross-dressing, folks are saying to themselves, all right, and you were in the sissy slap fight thing, which was full of like other homosexual guys. People are jumping to conclusions, and some of that stuff is because Cornette mentioned it, and some of that stuff is just because people don't like you. They saw Meltzer blowing you every time, you had a match. You were the greatest of all time and all this kind of shit. So people are kind of like, this your greatest of all time, who was dressed like Princess Jasmine from Aladdin? And then other people are kind of like, oh, he was just doing a comedy thing. It's like, I don't know, man. Look, people look at weirdo behavior and they just lump all that stuff together. If you engage in one weirdo thing and then multiple weirdo things, and then you have weirdo friends, one of which was, hey, grab my dick and I'll flip you, and then you'll get barred from wrestling in this territory if you don't grab my dick, male or female. It's like, yeah, people think that, birds of a feather flock together. Whether it's true or not, that's just how it is. But people believe birds of a feather flock together. And it's not fair for Kenny Omega to have to deal with this stuff, which is also why he should not be responding. He should not be responding. But what instead he did is he went and had a total meltdown. And this is very important for me to get the wording correct, because this was very, very weird. He says, you have no idea how combative I can get towards those talking shit. These people, all of their supposed beef, would never step up and say ignorant shit to my face. They never try to fight me. They never approach me at a gym or a restaurant with a dress code. They're pathetic. I hate fighting, but if all of you hate me so much, take a swing. You can even hit me from behind. We settle the issue and you can report back to Jim with the news. News of the spiral fractures down your legs and a face that looks like a bowl of ravioli. I'm like, he is in full mental breakdown at this point. He's talking about fighting strangers. And it's insanity. It's insanity. What is he talking about? He's called some guy a pedo already. He's attacked Jim Cornette, who had nothing to do with this. He didn't apologize for that, by the way. Then we got all of this stuff with him talking about fighting people. I'm like, what? This guy is clearly, AEW needs to do something, right? We talked about this before, and I said it starts at the top. It starts a little over a week after Tony Khan went apeshit and dissed Big Swole in a tweet. A little over a week later, Kenny Omega is calling people pedos and talking about fans should fight him when they see him. Having this sort of on-site tough guy. Like, for starters, nobody believes that Kenny Omega is a tough guy. Secondly, nobody wants to go to jail for getting into a fight with Kenny Omega. Nobody wants to do that. What they want to do is drive you fucking crazy, which is seemingly what they've done. He has taken, look, when you're a public figure And I know a lot of people are going to say, he's just defending himself. He was just defending himself against the trolls who were attacking him for his sexuality and every other. I'm like, I don't even know Kenny Omega's sexuality, you know? And I don't care. Ultimately, people don't like him. As a person in the public eye, there's going to be people who don't like you. And the more that they can talk shit about you, they will. And the more shit that they can talk, they will. Kenny Omega has all this ammunition of all of this weird stuff that he's done. And people are going to bring it up every chance they get. Just like when Ricochet did weird shit. I think they said he poked himself in the butt with his fingers or something like that. And whenever Ricochet tweets or something like that, people bring it up. Whenever, when you're a public figure and that kind of information and stuff becomes public, that's just what they do. They bring it up every single time. It's up to you to not respond, to show restraint, because it only got that to that point of you talking about we need to fight because you were responding. You should never ever responded. Once you show that you're that sensitive, that we need to respond to everything, you go on 2-hour tirades, and yes, within that 2 hours, you're going to say some shit that you shouldn't say. And those in the cult are going to defend you, whether, it's true or not, whether, because they view it as you're being bullied and cyberbullied and picked on or whatever. So they're going to defend you. But those on the outside, you look like a fucking maniac. And I'm one of those people on the outside. I'm not in the cult. I'm looking at it and saying, would a WWE superstar really get into these kinds of deep arguments with people on Twitter, let alone executives within the company? They wouldn't do that. But routinely, we see in AEW, the executives, either it's Cody, Tony, Omega, the Bucks, they always get involved in this kind of shit. In the last week, Jade Cargill has quit Twitter because she got a lot of negativity for winning the TBS title. People don't like Jade Cargill. It is what it is. She did the right thing. She got the fuck off Twitter. She didn't argue with people and embarrass her family and embarrass herself. If somebody says something snide about her child or something like that, block them, delete that shit, get that shit out of here. She did it the right way. She didn't go on a 3-hour tirade that ends up making the company look bad and making her look bad, and people asking questions about what the hell is going on. It happens all the time with AEW. And it happens all the time with WWE too, but the WWE is more professional. They will say what they got to say and then move the fuck on. You don't really see them getting into these deep arguments. And then when they do, like with Corey Graves, you get the same response. People just say, yo, stop responding. You're talking to trolls right now. You're talking to egg accounts. You're talking to Carl bunch of numbers. And all of a sudden, you saying some shit you ain't got no business saying. You're trying to defend yourself from accusations that don't matter against people who don't matter. You're doing too much. And Kenny Omega just did it again. He just flopped all the way into this shit. And now you've given a lot of ammunition and a lot of charcoal to a lot of the people who don't like you. People who don't like you already. You didn't make any new fans. And then if the right people retweet the stuff that you're saying, you're making new enemies. So it makes no sense to do this. And all the stuff that people were talking about you, you're kind of proving that it's true, because he didn't really address any of the stuff with Don Callis. He didn't address any of the stuff about Marty Scurll. He instead attacked people for bringing it up. And it is what it is. This is very sad. It's not even worth a smart tears, because the crying was coming mostly from Kenny Omega. They're bullying me. I'm like, just turn your fucking phone off, man. Turn your phone off. If you're so proud of Riho and all them, man, just say congratulations, you had a great match, and move on. People are talking about how Jericho's wife was at January 6th and all that kind of shit. They call them Jerichovid, and they're talking shit about Jericho all the time. Jericho don't respond to most of that shit. He just moves on. There's nothing you can do about it when people don't like you, because stories are out there about you or your friends or whatever. If you can't affirmatively defend them, move on. Don't respond. They ain't got nothing to do with you. That would be the smart way of doing things. But whoever accused Kenny Omega of being smart. All right, like this video, share this video, subscribe to the channel, donate to the channel. Thank you guys for your time. I'll talk to you guys later, man. Peace out.